The massive crystal chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. 12 different alien species sat in their designated seats, each representative looking more worried than the last. At the center of the room, Ambassador Veltar of the Nexari Empire stood tall on his 4 legs, his blue skin gleaming under the bright lights. His forearms moved in quick, sharp gestures as he spoke. "Fellow council members, we can no longer ignore this threat," Veltar said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The humans have become too dangerous. In just 200 years since we made first contact with them, they have spread across 17 star systems. They refuse to follow our rules. They trade with whoever they want. They build weapons that rival our own technology, and they have done all of this with simple chemical rockets." A low murmur ran through the chamber. In the back row, War Commander Thulgax of the Hegemony slammed his clawed fist on his desk. His gray stone-like face showed clear anger. "They mock our authority," he growled. "When we told them about the proper order of species in the galaxy, they laughed. They actually laughed at us." Ambassador Zixanel of the Crystalline Collective chimed in, her voice sounding like breaking glass. "My trade routes have lost 30% of their profits because of human competition. They offer better prices and faster delivery times. It makes no sense. They should not be able to do this with their primitive technology." The room fell silent as High Counselor Mordak of the Ancient Dominion slowly stood. His species had ruled parts of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. When he spoke, everyone listened. "The vote has been taken," Mordak said in his deep, rumbling voice. "All 12 major species agree. The humans must be stopped before they grow too powerful. We will give them one chance to surrender peacefully." 3 days later, Ambassador Crixtel arrived at Earth's orbital station. The insectoid diplomat was over 8 feet tall, with 6 legs and compound eyes that seemed to see everything. He had delivered ultimatums to dozens of species over his long career. None had ever refused to surrender when faced with the might of the Galactic Council. Captain Elena Rodriguez met him at the airlock. She was a small woman compared to the towering alien, but she stood straight and looked directly into his multifaceted eyes. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. "Ambassador Crixtel," Rodriguez said with a polite nod, "welcome to Terra Station. I assume you have a message for us from the Council." Crixtel's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered a sign of importance. "Indeed, human. I bring the final decision of the Galactic Council. You will listen carefully." Rodriguez gestured toward a nearby conference room. "Of course, please, let's make this comfortable." The conference room was simple and clean, with a large window showing Earth below. The blue and green planet turned slowly in space, peaceful and beautiful. Crixtel looked at it for a moment before activating his translation device. By order of the Galactic Council, representing the 12 dominant species of this galaxy, humanity is commanded to surrender immediately. Crixtel began reading from a crystal tablet. "You have 30 standard galactic days to comply with the following demands." He paused dramatically, as he had done many times before with other species. "First, all human military vessels must be surrendered to Council forces. Second, all human worlds must accept Council oversight and governance. Third, the human population must be relocated to a single world chosen by the Council for your safety and proper supervision. Fourth, all human technology and scientific discoveries must be turned over to the Council for safekeeping." Rodriguez listened quietly, her face showing no emotion. She had been trained for situations like this, though no one had expected the Council to make such extreme demands. Crixtel continued, "The Council recognizes that humans are a young species who may not understand the proper order of galactic civilization. This offer of protection is generous. Many species would simply be eliminated for showing such disrespect to established authority." "Is that all?" Rodriguez asked calmly. "The 30-day deadline begins now," Crixtel said, putting away his tablet. "I will remain here to receive your surrender when you come to your senses. I must warn you, human, that no species has ever successfully resisted the combined might of the Council. Your weapons are primitive, your ships are slow, and your technology is centuries behind ours. Surrender is your only option." Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully. She looked out the window at Earth again, then back at the alien ambassador. For a long moment, the room was completely silent. Then Rodriguez began to laugh. It started as a small chuckle, but quickly grew into full, hearty laughter. She laughed so hard that tears formed in her eyes. The sound echoed off the walls of the conference room, growing louder and more joyful with each second. Crixtel stared at her in complete confusion. In all his years of delivering ultimatums, no species had ever laughed. They usually begged, threatened, or tried to negotiate. None had ever found the situation amusing. "I do not understand," Crixtel said, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Why do you make this noise?" Rodriguez wiped her eyes and tried to control her laughter. "I'm sorry, Ambassador. It's just that your demands are so ridiculous that I couldn't help myself. You're serious, aren't you? You actually think we're going to surrender?" "Of course you will surrender," Crixtel replied, now sounding less confident. "You have no choice. The Council fleet numbers in the tens of thousands. Your entire military force is perhaps a few hundred ships." Rodriguez stood up and walked to the window. Earth continued its slow rotation below, completely peaceful. Cities twinkled like stars on the night side of the planet. "Ambassador, let me tell you something about humans," Rodriguez said, still looking out at her homeworld. "We're the species that survived ice ages with nothing but animal skins and sharp sticks. We're the species that split the atom and walked on the moon before we even knew other life existed in the galaxy. We fought wars against our own kind for thousands of years and learned hard lessons about freedom and tyranny." She turned back to face Crixtel. "We've spent the last 200 years exploring the galaxy, trading with everyone we met, making friends where we could. But we've also been watching and learning. We know exactly how powerful the Council thinks it is." Rodriguez walked back to the conference table and placed both hands on its surface, leaning forward slightly. Her voice was calm, but firm. "So here's our answer to your generous offer," she said. "Humanity respectfully declines. We will not surrender our ships, our worlds, or our freedom. We will not be relocated to some Council-approved reservation, and we certainly will not hand over our technology to people who think they can intimidate us with numbers." Crixtel's compound eyes seemed to shimmer with disbelief. "But you cannot resist us. The Council has ruled the galaxy for millennia. The Council has ruled species that were willing to be ruled," Rodriguez corrected. "You've never dealt with humans before." She walked to the communication panel on the wall and activated it. "This is Captain Rodriguez to Terra Command. Initiate protocol. Defiance, send word to all human worlds and ships. Tell them the Council wants us to surrender." A voice crackled through the speaker. "Understood, Captain. What should we tell them about our response?" Rodriguez looked directly at Crixtel as she answered. "Tell them that when someone demands our surrender, we have a traditional human response." She paused, her smile growing wider. "We tell them to come and take it." The communication ended, and the room fell silent again. Crixtel stood frozen, trying to process what he had just heard. In his long career, no species had ever been so foolishly defiant. "You are making a terrible mistake," he finally said. "The Council fleet will destroy you." Rodriguez shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe you're about to learn why humans laugh when someone threatens us. We've been preparing for this day since the moment we met our first alien. We know exactly what the Council is capable of." She walked toward the door, then paused. "Oh, an ambassador? You might want to send word back to your fleet commanders. Tell them to be very, very careful when they come to our solar system. Humans don't like uninvited guests who make threats." As Rodriguez left the room, Crixtel remained standing by the window, staring down at the blue world below. For the first time in his career, he felt a strange emotion he had never experienced before. When delivering an ultimatum, fear. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that officially did not exist, humanity's greatest minds gathered around a massive holographic display. The war room was carved from solid rock and lined with the most advanced shielding technology Earth could produce. No alien sensors could penetrate this deep into the planet's crust. General Marcus Webb stood at the center of the room, his gray hair and weathered face telling the story of 40 years in Earth's military. Around him, dozens of screens showed star maps, fleet positions, and tactical data that would have surprised any council observer. Webb activated the main display with a simple gesture. "Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've been preparing for has finally arrived," Webb said to the assembled group. "The Galactic Council has demanded our surrender. As expected, Captain Rodriguez has told them where they can put their ultimatum." A few chuckles ran through the room. These people had been planning for this scenario for decades. Dr. Lydia Voss stepped forward from her position near the technical displays. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and hands that never stopped moving. As head of the Prometheus Research Division, she had overseen humanity's most secret projects for the past 15 years. "General, with your permission, I'd like to brief everyone on our actual capabilities," Voss said. "I think some of our people still don't realize just how ready we really are." Webb nodded. "Go ahead, Doctor. Show them what we've really been building." Voss activated a series of displays that showed ship designs unlike anything in the public records. Sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around them, weapons that pulsed with strange energies, and drive systems that defied conventional physics. "Project Ghost Fleet," Voss began. "For the past 20 years, we've been building a shadow navy. Every alien probe that accidentally wandered into our territory was captured, studied, and reverse-engineered. Every piece of Council technology we could get our hands on was improved upon. The displays showed hundreds of ships, far more than the Council believed humans possessed. They hung in hidden bases throughout the solar system, invisible to alien sensors. The Council thinks we have maybe 500 military vessels," Voss continued. "The actual number is closer to 3,000, and every single one is built with technology that's at least 50 years ahead of their best estimates." Admiral Patricia Kane, Earth's naval commander, stepped up to the display. Her blue uniform was decorated with medals from conflicts the public had never heard of. "The stealth systems alone give us an enormous advantage. Their sensors can't see us unless we want them to. We've been watching their fleet movements for months." "What about communication?" asked Colonel Robert Mills, head of Earth's intelligence services. "They'll try to coordinate their fleets." Voss smiled and activated another display. "Project Hermes. We've developed instantaneous communication networks that bypass all known galactic monitoring systems. Our ships can coordinate in real time, across thousands of light years. The Council still uses quantum entanglement networks that we learned to intercept years ago." The room buzzed with quiet conversation as the gathered officers absorbed this information. Many had known pieces of the truth, but few had seen the complete picture. "There's more," Voss said, bringing up another set of classified files. "The Spartan program has produced over 10,000 enhanced soldiers. They can survive in any environment, resist most known alien weapons, and operate equipment that would kill normal humans. Every human world has a full regiment of Spartans, and the Council has no idea they exist." General Webb took control of Vano. The display again, showing a galaxy-wide map dotted with thousands of markers. "But our greatest advantage isn't our technology, it's our intelligence network." The map zoomed in on various Council worlds, showing detailed information about military installations, government facilities, and economic centers. The level of detail was stunning. "For the past 50 years, humans have been the best traders in the galaxy," Webb explained. "We go everywhere, we're friendly, we offer good deals, and we learn everything. There isn't a major Council world that doesn't have at least a dozen human merchants living there permanently." Meanwhile, on the Council homeworld of Zentara Prime, War Commander Thulgax presented his invasion plan to the assembled military leaders. The holographic display showed the human solar system surrounded by overwhelming Council forces. "The humans have perhaps 500 warships," Thulgax said, confidently. "Our combined fleet numbers 50,000 vessels. Even allowing for their stubborn nature, the battle will be over within hours of our arrival." The other Council military leaders nodded in agreement. They had fought dozens of species over the millennia. Young, aggressive races always thought they could resist, but they all surrendered once they saw the true might of the Council. Admiral Zephyron of the Nixari fleet studied the tactical display. What about their planetary defenses? Every species has some kind of orbital weapons. Primitive missile systems and energy cannons, Thulgax replied dismissively. Our shields can handle anything they might have built. The humans are clever, for such a young species, but they lack the industrial capacity to build truly dangerous weapons. Back on Earth, Agent Jackson Kane sat in a coffee shop on the industrial world of Corvin 7, 300 light-years from home. To any observer, he was just another human trader looking for deals on rare metals. His modest ship and worn clothes supported this cover perfectly. What the local aliens didn't know was that Kane had been mapping every military installation in this system for the past 2 years. His coffee shop meetings with local officials weren't just friendly conversation. They were intelligence-gathering operations that would have impressed the best spies in galactic history. Kane activated his hidden communicator, a device built into what looked like an ordinary data pad. The message he sent would take less than a second to reach Earth, thanks to the Hermes network. Control, this is Raven 7. Council 3rd Fleet is moving toward Rally Point Sigma. Estimated departure in 6 days. Recommend activating Sleeper. Protocols on Corvan 7 through Corvan 12. Package delivery confirmed for all targets. Similar messages were being sent from agents throughout Council space. Humans who had lived and worked on alien worlds for years were suddenly revealing their true purpose. The network that had been built over decades was finally activating. Dr. Voss addressed the war room again, bringing up a display that showed the true scope of human preparation. We've been at war for 50 years, she said quietly. The Council just didn't know it. Every failed negotiation, every trade dispute, every misunderstanding has been part of our preparation for this moment. The beauty of it, added General Webb, is that they still think we're the same species they first met 200 years ago. They have no idea how much we've learned, how much we've grown, or how much we've been planning. Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system from Terra Station. Control, the Council ambassador is demanding a meeting with Earth's government. He wants to discuss our inevitable surrender and seems confused by our response. Webb smiled grimly. Tell him he's welcome to stay and watch the show. He might learn something about human nature. As the 30-day deadline approached, the galaxy watched with interest. Most alien species expected humanity to surrender at the last moment, as so many others had done before. The idea that a species barely 2 centuries old could resist the combined might of the Council seemed absurd. But in hidden bases throughout human space, thousands of ships powered up their engines. Enhanced soldiers checked their equipment one final time. Intelligence agents activated sleeper protocols that had been years in the making. And in the depths of Earth's most secure facilities, weapons that could reshape the balance of galactic power hummed with contained energy. On the 29th day, Rodriguez sent humanity's final response to the Galactic Council. The message was broadcast on every frequency, reaching every inhabited world in the galaxy. To the Galactic Council and all who would threaten human freedom. We appreciate your concern for our welfare, but humanity respectfully declines your generous offer. We choose to remain free, we choose to remain human, and we choose to show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate the species that turned rocks and sticks into starships. Hidden within the transmission, encoded in frequencies that only human technology could detect, was a simple message that activated agents on 1,000 worlds. Remember the Alamo, remember Pearl Harbor, remember that we are human. The Council fleet began moving toward Earth, confident of easy victory. They had no idea they were flying into the most carefully prepared trap in galactic history. War was coming to the solar system, but humanity was ready. The edge of the solar system erupted in brilliant flashes of light as Admiral Zephron's massive armada dropped out of hyperspace. 50,000 ships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming like deadly stars against the black of space. The largest vessels stretched for kilometers, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The smallest fighters swarmed around them like angry insects, ready to devour anything that dared resist. Zephron stood on the bridge of his flagship, the mighty dreadnought, Council's Will. His blue-skinned face showed satisfaction as he surveyed the human solar system through his ship's sensors. Everything appeared exactly as their intelligence had predicted. "Admiral, we're detecting human ships forming defensive positions around their homeworld," reported Commander Velkos from the sensor station. "Numbers match our estimates. Approximately 500 vessels, mostly concentrated near Earth and Mars." Zephyron nodded with confidence. "Pathetic. They're trying to protect their breeding world with a force barely 1% the size of ours. Open communications to all Council fleets." The massive holographic display activated, showing the faces of fleet commanders from all 12 Council species. War Commander Thulgax appeared in the center, his stone-like features eager for battle. "Fellow commanders," Zephyron announced, "today we end the human threat to galactic order. Their fleet is small and primitive. We will crush them quickly, then accept their surrender. Remember, we want some of them alive for questioning about their technology." Across human space, emergency broadcasts flooded every communication channel. News reporters spoke in panicked voices as they showed the massive alien fleet approaching Earth. Cities around the globe activated emergency shelters. Families hugged each other goodbye as they prepared for the worst. On Terra Station, Captain Rodriguez watched the approaching armada through the observation deck windows. Ambassador Crixtel stood beside her, his compound eyes reflecting the distant lights of the Council ships. "Your fleet is impressive," Rodriguez said calmly. 50,000 ships. That must represent the combined military might of most of the galaxy. Crixtel clicked his mandibles together nervously. Despite his confidence in Council superiority, something about the humans' calm behavior worried him. "It is not too late to surrender, Captain. My people are not unreasonable. Submit now and your species will be treated well." Rodriguez smiled slightly. "That's very kind of you, Ambassador. But I'm afraid we've already made our choice." The first engagement began near Luna, Earth's ancient moon. A group of human destroyers moved to intercept a Council scouting force, their engines burning bright blue against the starfield. The human ships looked tiny compared to the massive alien vessels bearing down on them. Captain Torres commanded, the destroyer indomitable as it led the human formation into battle. Her ship was one of the older designs built with technology the Council would recognize and dismiss. The perfect bait. "All ships, maintain formation," Torres ordered over the comm system. "Remember, we need to make this look good. Fight hard, but let them push us back toward the inner system." The Council scouts opened fire with their plasma cannons, sending streams of superheated energy toward the human ships. The Indomitable shuddered as its shields absorbed the hits, sparks flying from damaged control panels on the bridge. Torres gripped her command chair as another blast rocked the ship. "Return fire. All weapons." The human destroyers fired back with their missile systems and energy weapons. Several Council ships took damage, but their superior numbers began to tell. One by one, the human vessels started to fall back, their defensive fire becoming more desperate. "Earth Command, this is Torres," the captain transmitted on an open frequency that she knew the Council was monitoring. "We can't hold them. There are too many. They're breaking through our lines." Her ship shook violently as multiple plasma bolts struck home. Fires erupted on the bridge and half the crew appeared to be injured. "We're losing power," Torres continued, her voice filled with artificial panic. "Hull breach on Deck 7. We can't. Tell my family The transmission cut to static as the Indomitable exploded in a brilliant fireball. The other human ships scattered, fleeing toward Earth as the Council forces pursued them. War Commander Thulgax watched the battle from his command ship and felt deep satisfaction. "As expected," he growled to his staff officers. "Humans fight bravely for such a primitive species. But courage cannot overcome superior technology in numbers." The pattern repeated throughout the solar system over the next several hours. Human ships engaged Council forces in desperate battles, fighting hard before being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. The asteroid belt became a graveyard of twisted metal and debris as humanity's fleet was systematically destroyed. Admiral Zephyrin coordinated the advance from his flagship, watching with professional interest as his forces swept aside all human resistance. The humans were braver than most species, he had to admit, but the outcome was never in doubt. Status report, he commanded. 80% of human fleet destroyed or scattered, reported his tactical officer. Remaining ships are fleeing toward their inner planets. We should reach Earth within 6 hours. Excellent. Signal the troop transports to prepare for planetary assault. We'll secure their major cities and accept their surrender before nightfall. But as Council forces moved deeper into the human solar system, strange things began to happen. Ships on the outer edges of the formation started disappearing without explanation. Communication arrays suffered mysterious malfunctions. Most troubling of all, detailed scans of the destroyed human ships showed something impossible. Commander Velkos stared at his sensor readings in confusion. Admiral, I'm not detecting any life support signatures in these human ship remains. No crew quarters, no medical facilities, no food storage. It's as if they were never designed to carry living beings. Zephyron frowned at this news. What are you suggesting, Commander? Sir, I think those weren't real warships. They appear to have been elaborate decoys, drones designed to look and fight like crewed vessels. Before Zephyron could respond to this disturbing information, his communications officer called out urgently, Admiral, we're receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It's coming from the human homeworld. The main screen activated, showing Captain Rodriguez standing in what appeared to be a command center deep underground. She looked completely calm and unworried, despite the massive alien fleet approaching her world. Admiral Zephyron, Rodriguez said with a polite smile, I hope you've enjoyed our little performance so far. The human crews put a lot of effort into making those drone ships fight realistically. I think Captain Torres deserves special recognition. Her fake death scene was particularly dramatic. Zephyron stared at the screen in shock. What are you talking about, human? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I spoil the surprise? Rodriguez looked genuinely apologetic. Well, I suppose it doesn't matter now. You see, Admiral, everything you've destroyed in the last few hours was just for show. We wanted to see how your fleet operated, how your commanders thought, and how your weapons performed. The Council Admiral felt a cold chill run through his body. That's impossible. We detected your entire fleet. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. You detected exactly what we wanted you to detect. We've been studying your sensor technology for 50 years, Admiral. We know how to fool it completely. She gestured to someone off-screen, and suddenly every display in the Council fleet began showing impossible readings. Ships that had appeared on sensors for hours suddenly vanished. Energy signatures that had seemed like normal stellar radiation revealed themselves to be massive vessels hiding in plain sight. Ladies and gentlemen of the Council fleet, Rodriguez announced, her voice now carrying across every comm channel in the Armada. Allow me to introduce you to humanity's real fleet. Space itself seemed to shimmer and bend as thousands of ships became visible around the Council formation. Sleek vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, their hulls covered in materials that no Council scientist had ever seen. They moved with impossible grace, positioning themselves with precision that suggested computer coordination beyond anything the galaxy had seen. The Council Armada found itself completely surrounded by a force 3 times their own size. Human, ships hung motionless in space like predators watching their prey, weapons trained on every Council vessel. Admiral Zephyron's face went pale as he realized the magnitude of the trap. His overwhelming force had become the surrounded prey. The hunters had become the hunted. This is impossible, he whispered, staring at the tactical display that now showed the true situation. Your technology. You're supposed to be centuries behind us. Rodriguez's smile grew wider. Admiral, let me share something my species learned long ago. Never assume your enemy is as weak as they appear to be, especially when that enemy has had 200 years to study you and prepare for this exact moment. War Commander Thulgax's voice crackled over the Council communication network, filled with rage and disbelief. It's a trick, some kind of hologram or sensor ghost. Humans cannot have built so many ships. Would you like us to prove they're real? Rodriguez asked politely. I'm sure our gunners would be happy to demonstrate. The first human ship fired a single shot, a beam of energy that seemed to twist space itself as it traveled. The target, a Council heavy cruiser, simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris. One moment it was there, the next moment there was only empty space. 50,000 alien voices fell silent as the reality of their situation finally sank in. They had come to demand humanity's surrender. Instead, they had flown directly into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history. The species they had dismissed as primitive had been preparing for this war since the day they first met aliens. And now, surrounded and outgunned, the mighty Council fleet faced a choice they had never expected to make: surrender or be destroyed by the very species they had come to conquer. The silence that followed the destruction of the Council cruiser lasted exactly 10 seconds. Then, Admiral Zephyron's voice crackled across all frequencies, filled with desperate authority. "All Council ships attack immediately. They may have superior numbers, but we have superior training and experience. Show these humans what real warriors can do." The massive Council fleet erupted into action, 50,000 ships moving in coordinated attack formations that had conquered dozens of star systems. Plasma cannons fired in brilliant streams. Missile launchers released clouds of guided death, and energy weapons lanced out toward the surrounding human forces. Captain Diana Foster stood on the bridge of the human battleship Retribution, watching the light show with professional interest. Her ship was one of the new Ghost-class vessels, built with technology that made Council weapons look like antiques. "All human ships, you are cleared to engage," Foster announced calmly over the fleet communications network. "Remember, we want to capture as many of their vessels intact as possible. Try not to completely annihilate them." The human fleet moved with a coordination that seemed impossible. Thousands of ships flowed through space like schools of fish, each vessel knowing exactly where every other ship would be at any given moment. The Hermes communication network allowed them to share information instantly across the entire battle zone. The Council's first barrage of weapons fire struck the human fleet and seemed to have no effect at all. Plasma bolts that should have melted armor simply disappeared into the strange hulls of the human ships. Missiles that should have cracked hulls were absorbed by energy fields that bent physics in ways Council scientists didn't understand. "Return. Fire," Foster ordered with a slight smile. The human response was surgical in its precision. Each Council ship found itself targeted by exactly the right amount of firepower needed to disable it. Weapons that phased through energy shields struck propulsion systems. Strange energy fields scrambled computer networks. In minutes, entire Council squadrons found themselves floating helplessly in space. War Commander Thulgax watched in horror as his proud fleet was torn apart with terrifying efficiency. The humans weren't just defeating them, they were making it look easy. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his science officer. "Their weapons are passing through our shields as if they don't exist." "Sir, I believe they're using phase variance technology," the officer replied, his voice shaking. "They're shifting the quantum signature of their energy beams to match our shield frequency. It's theoretically possible, but it would require computing power beyond anything we've ever seen." Thulgax slammed his fist on his command console. "Then we'll use the forbidden weapons, authorize planet-cracking missiles. If we can't conquer them, we'll eliminate them completely." Deep in the Council fleet, massive dreadnoughts opened their special weapons bays. Planet-cracking missiles emerged. Weapons so powerful they were banned by galactic law. Each missile carried enough destructive force to shatter continents and boil oceans. 12 missiles launched simultaneously. Their targets the major population, centers of Earth. The missiles streaked toward the blue-green world, their warheads armed with the power to end human civilization. In the underground command center, Dr. Voss watched their approach on her tactical display with calm satisfaction. "Planetary. Shields at full power," she announced to General Webb. "Let's see how our defenses handle their best shot." As the planet-killer missiles approached Earth, they encountered something that should not have existed. A shield of pure energy surrounded the entire world, invisible until the weapons struck it. The massive warheads exploded against the barrier, with the force of multiple supernovae, releasing enough energy to destroy solar systems. The planetary shield absorbed every bit of that energy, and redirected it harmlessly into space. Earth continued its peaceful rotation, completely unharmed. Admiral Zephyron stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Impossible. Those were planet-cracking weapons. Nothing can stop them. Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system again, still maddeningly calm. Admiral, did you really think we'd leave our homeworld undefended? We've been studying your weapons for decades. Every energy signature, every delivery system. Our defenses were built specifically to counter everything you could throw at us. The tide of battle turned completely as human ships began pursuing fleeing Council vessels. The predators had become prey, and the humans hunted with ruthless efficiency. Commander Ryan Brooks led a squadron of human hunter-killers as they chased down War Commander Thulgax's flagship. The alien dreadnought was fast and heavily armed, but it couldn't outrun ships that bent space around themselves to achieve faster-than-light speeds in normal space. "This is Commander Brooks to Council vessel," he transmitted on an open channel. "You have 60 seconds to surrender before we disable your ship. Your choice." Thulgax's response was a desperate barrage of weapons fire. His ship's guns blazed, continuously pouring everything they had at the pursuing human vessels. The energy output was enormous, enough to level cities. Brooks watched the light show with mild interest. "Impressive fireworks, but they're shooting at ships that aren't entirely in the same dimension as they are. All units disable that vessel. Try to leave the crew quarters intact." The human ships fired a coordinated salvo of phase weapons. Thulgax's mighty dreadnought shuddered as its engines died. Its weapons went offline and its life support flickered. In seconds, the pride of the hegemony fleet became a drifting hulk. Throughout the solar system, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Council ships that had entered the system as conquerors found themselves disabled and helpless, their crews staring in shock at displays showing human vessels that seemed to appear and disappear at will. But the real shock was yet to come. News of the battle spread across the galaxy at light speed, carried by automated communication relays that the Council had built to coordinate their empire. On Zentara Prime, the Council homeworld, emergency sessions began as reports poured in of their invincible fleet being destroyed. High Counselor Mordak stood before the assembled representatives, his ancient face showing emotions he had not felt in millennia. Fear, confusion, and something else, the growing realization that the galaxy had changed forever. "The reports cannot be accurate," insisted Ambassador Veltar. "Humans do not have the industrial capacity to build such a fleet. They do not have the technology to create such weapons." "The reports are coming from over 300 different ships," Mordak replied grimly. "Unless they are all suffering from the same hallucination, we must accept the impossible. Humanity has been preparing for this war since the day we met them." The emergency session was interrupted by urgent communications from across Council space. Reports flooded in from dozens of worlds. Human traders and merchants who had lived peacefully in Council space for decades were suddenly revealing their true nature. On the industrial world of Corvin 7, Agent Jackson Kane dropped his cover as a simple trader. The local military commander, General Vextar, watched in stunned disbelief as Kane's modest cargo ship transformed before his eyes. Hidden compartments opened to reveal advanced weapon systems. The ship's hull reconfigured itself, revealing stealth technology that had been hiding in plain sight. "General Vexitar," Kane said politely over the communication channel, "I'm afraid I haven't been entirely honest about my business here. For the past 3 years, I've been mapping every military installation in your system. My associates have done the same on 47 other Council worlds." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human agents who had spent years building relationships, learning languages, and studying alien cultures suddenly activated equipment that had been hidden in their ships and homes. Communication networks that the Council had considered secure were revealed to be completely compromised. Back in the Sol system, the remnants of the Council fleet found themselves facing a choice no Council species had ever confronted. Admiral Zephyron's flagship was one of the few vessels still capable of communication, its weapons disabled, but its crew alive. "Admiral," Rodriguez's voice came through the static-filled comm system. You have a decision to make. You can order your remaining ships to continue fighting, and we'll be forced to destroy them completely. Or you can accept that this war is over and work with us to find a better solution. Zephyrin looked around his damaged bridge. Half his crew was injured, most of his systems were offline, and his overwhelming fleet was scattered debris floating in space. But what really broke his spirit was the realization that humanity had been toying with them from the beginning. What do you want? He asked quietly. Right now? We want you to send a message to every council world, Rodriguez replied. Tell them exactly what happened here. Tell them that humanity didn't start this war, but we're certainly going to finish it. And tell them that any species that wants to continue fighting will face the same fate as your fleet. But even as Zephyrin prepared to send that message, reports were arriving of human fleets appearing throughout council space. They materialized near major worlds not as conquerors, but as liberators. Species that had been oppressed by council rule for centuries suddenly found themselves with powerful allies. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Commander Lisa Park led a human battle group in freeing the enslaved Zephyrian workers. The aliens had been forced to extract rare minerals under brutal conditions for over 200 years. When the human ships arrived, the Zephyrian slaves thought they were facing new masters. Instead, they found freedom. Attention all council. Forces in this system, Park broadcast on all frequencies. You have 10 minutes to release all enslaved workers and evacuate this world. Any attempt to harm the Zephyr population will result in your immediate destruction. This is not a negotiation. The council garrison commander tried to resist, threatening to execute hostages if the humans attacked. Park's response was swift and decisive. Precision strikes disabled the prison camp's execution systems, while transporter technology that shouldn't have existed beamed the Zephyrian prisoners to safety aboard human ships. How did you do that? The grateful Zephyrian leader asked as he stood on the bridge of Park's ship, watching his people being freed. We've been developing this technology for decades, Park replied with a smile. Every species the council enslaved, every world they conquered, every injustice they committed, we've been taking notes. Today, we settle the score. The news of humanity's intervention spread faster than council forces could respond. On world after world, oppressed species rose up against their council overlords, supported by human weapons, technology, and military advisors who seemed to appear out of nowhere. In the depths of space, massive council reinforcement fleets began moving toward human territory, but they found their path blocked by something unprecedented, a coalition of free species armed with human technology and trained by human military advisors. General Webb stood in the underground command center, watching as tactical displays showed the true scope of humanity's plan unfolding across the galaxy. This wasn't just a war, it was a revolution that had been 50 years in the making. Status report, he ordered. Council First Fleet destroyed or captured, reported his tactical officer. Council 3rd, 7th, and 12th Fleets are requesting terms of surrender. Council 5th Fleet is retreating toward their core worlds. And General, we're receiving requests for assistance from 37 oppressed species throughout Council space. Webb nodded grimly. The easy part was over. Now came the real work, reshaping galactic civilization from the ground up. Send word to all human commanders, he ordered. Phase 3 is now active. Time to show the galaxy what freedom really looks like. As the last of the Council fleet in Sol system powered down their weapons in surrender, Rodriguez made one final transmission that would be remembered throughout galactic history. To all species listening to this broadcast, she said, her voice carrying across 1,000 worlds, today marks the end of the old galactic order. Today we begin building something better. Today we prove that no species, no matter how ancient, how powerful, or how arrogant, has the right to demand another's surrender. She paused, looking out at the blue world that had spawned the species now reshaping the galaxy. We are human. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. And we do not forget those who need our help. The war for the galaxy's future had begun, and humanity intended to win it. 6 months after the destruction of the Council fleet at Sol, the galaxy burned with revolution. On 1,000 worlds, species that had lived under Council rule for centuries rose up against their oppressors. The uprising spread like wildfire, fueled by human weapons, human technology, and the simple idea that no species should bow to another. High Counselor Mordak stood on the observation deck of his fortress on Zentara Prime, watching as human ships maintained their blockade of the Council homeworld. His ancient empire, built over 10 millennia, was crumbling around him. Reports from across the galaxy told the same story. Council fleets destroyed, Council worlds liberated, Council authority collapsing. Status report, he demanded of his aide, a nervous Nexari official whose blue skin had turned pale with stress. Sir, we've lost contact with 70% of our member worlds, the aide replied, consulting his datapad with shaking hands. The remaining fleets are either destroyed, surrendered, or have joined the human coalition. Our last stronghold systems are under siege. Mordak closed his ancient eyes. His species had ruled parts of the galaxy for longer than most civilizations had existed. The idea that it could all end because of one stubborn young species seemed impossible. And our allies, he asked, though he already knew the answer. The Crystalline Collective has declared neutrality. The hegemony is negotiating surrender terms. Ambassador Veltar's fleet was captured last week when they tried to retake the Corvin system. On the bridge of the human battleship, Freedom's Dawn, Admiral Patricia Kane coordinated the liberation of yet another oppressed world. The planet Zirion 4 had been strip-mined by the Council for 3 centuries, its native population forced to work in conditions that killed millions. Admiral, the Council garrison is requesting terms, reported her communications officer. Kane looked at the tactical display showing the orbital stations where Zarian workers had been imprisoned. Tell them they have exactly 1 hour to evacuate all Council personnel from the planet. Any attempt to destroy facilities or harm the native population will result in their complete annihilation. The response came quickly. Admiral, they're asking about safe passage to Council territory. Safe passage granted, Kane replied. But they go with nothing except their personal belongings. All Council technology, all stolen resources, all weapons, stay here. This world belongs to its people now. As the Council forces evacuated, Kane watched thousands of Zirian natives emerge from underground mining facilities. Many had never seen the surface of their own world. The sight of their joy and disbelief was worth more than any military victory. On Earth, in the same chamber where the Council had once demanded surrender, representatives from hundreds of species gathered for the first session of something completely new. The Terran Galactic Republic was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, a coalition based on equality rather than domination. Captain Rodriguez, now serving as Earth's first galactic ambassador, stood before the assembled delegates. The chamber buzzed with dozens of different languages as species that had never been allowed to speak for themselves prepared to participate in galactic government. Fellow beings, Rodriguez began, her words translated instantly into every language present. We gather here not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals united in the belief that freedom is the birthright of every intelligent species. In the front row sat representatives of the Zephyrian people, recently freed from centuries of slavery. Behind them were delegates from the Keth Republic, whose world had been strip-mined until human intervention restored their ecosystem. Dozens of other species filled the chamber, each with their own story of Council oppression and human liberation. The old galactic order was built on the idea that older species had the right to rule younger ones, Rodriguez continued. That strength gave the right to oppress. That age granted wisdom and authority. We reject these ideas completely. A murmur of agreement ran through the chamber. These were species that had been told for centuries that they were inferior, that they needed Council guidance, that freedom was beyond their capabilities. General Webb appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Military report, he announced to the assembly. The last major Council fleet has surrendered at Rigel 7. All Council stronghold worlds have agreed to peace negotiations. Effective immediately, There are no longer any Council military forces capable of threatening free worlds. The chamber erupted in celebration. Cheers, chittering, harmonic songs, and other expressions of joy from dozens of different species. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy was free. But even as they celebrated, Rodriguez knew the real work was just beginning. Building a free galaxy would be much harder than conquering an oppressed one. Dr. Voss addressed the assembly next, explaining humanity's offer of technological assistance. We're prepared to share our advances in medicine, agriculture, manufacturing, and defense with any species that chooses to join the Republic. But understand, this is not charity and it doesn't make us your rulers. We're offering partnership, not protection. The Zephyrian delegate, a tall insectoid being named Clixera, stood to speak. Her species had developed remarkable artistic abilities during their centuries of oppression, creating beauty even in the darkest conditions. Humans of Earth, she said, her voice carrying the musical quality of her people. You could have conquered us as easily as you conquered the Council. Instead, you offer us equality. Why? Rodriguez smiled at the question she had been asked by dozens of species over the past months. Because conquest creates enemies, partnership creates friends, and because a galaxy where every species can reach its full potential is better for everyone. On Zentara Prime, the last stronghold of Council power, a very different conversation was taking place. Ambassador Veltar sat in chains in a detention facility, awaiting trial for crimes against sentient beings. His forearms, once used to gesture dramatically in the Council chamber, were now bound with energy restraints. Commander Brooks, the human officer who had captured his fleet, sat across from him in the interrogation room. You keep asking why. We don't just execute you, Brooks said calmly. The answer is simple. We're not the Council. We believe in justice, not revenge. Justice, Veltar spat, his blue skin flushing darker with anger. You've destroyed an order that brought stability to the galaxy for 10,000 years. Brooks pulled up a holographic display showing images from liberated worlds. Zephyr children seeing sunlight for the first time, Keth farmers planting crops in soil restored by human terraforming technology, dozens of species working together on projects that would benefit everyone. This is your stability? Brooks asked quietly. Slavery, strip mining, genocide? If that's order, then chaos is better. Back on Earth, the work of building a new galactic government continued. The challenges were enormous. Thousands of species with different cultures, biologies, and needs, all trying to work together as equals. Ambassador Rodriguez found herself mediating disputes between species that had been enemies for centuries, negotiating trade agreements that didn't exploit anyone, and establishing laws that protected everyone's rights while respecting everyone's differences. The hardest part, she confided to General Webb during one of their regular strategy meetings, isn't the former Council species who want their power back. It's convincing the liberated species that they really are free. Some of them keep asking us what we want them to do, as if freedom is just another form of slavery with different masters. Webb nodded thoughtfully. It'll take time. Most of these species have never known anything but Council rule. Learning to think and act as free beings won't happen overnight. But it will happen, Rodriguez said with conviction. We've shown them it's possible. Now we help them make it real. The transformation wasn't without setbacks. Some former Council species refused to accept the new order and retreated to isolated systems where they maintained their old ways. A few liberated species struggled with the responsibilities that came with freedom, leading to conflicts that required human mediation. But for every problem, there were dozens of success stories. The Xerion mining world became a center of learning, its people channeling their incredible work ethic into research and education. The artistic Zephyrian culture flourished, creating works of beauty that inspired species across the galaxy. Former enemies worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. 1 year after the Council's defeat, Rodriguez stood once again in the chamber where it all began, but now it served as the meeting hall of the Terran Galactic Republic, filled with representatives from over 300 free worlds. "We have come far in this first year," she told the assembly. "We have proven that species can work together as equals. We have shown that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. We have demonstrated that the galaxy belongs to all of us, not just the oldest or the strongest." The chamber fell quiet as she continued. "But let us never forget how we got here. We are free because one young species refused to surrender when an ancient empire demanded it. We are equal because humans chose partnership over domination. We are here because someone finally said no to tyranny." She paused, looking out at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Some humanoid, some utterly alien, all of them free. "The council called us primitive. They said we were too young to understand galactic civilization. They ordered us to surrender, and we simply laughed. Today, that laughter echoes across 1,000 worlds, as free beings everywhere remember that no one, no matter how powerful, has the right to demand another's surrender." The chamber erupted in the sounds of celebration from hundreds of species. In the months and years that followed, children across the galaxy would learn the story in their schools. They would learn about the day the galaxy learned to laugh at tyranny, the day freedom was born among the stars. And they would remember that it all began with a simple human word: no. The age of the council was over. The age of freedom had begun, and humanity, the species that had refused to kneel, stood, ready to defend that freedom against anyone who would threaten it. The cold metal walls of the abandoned research station hummed with power as Commander Thane stepped through the airlock. His reptilian features reflected the dim emergency lighting as he surveyed the human facility floating in the darkness of space. The Kepler 442 system had many secrets, but finding this intact human outpost was an unexpected prize. "Sir, the station appears to have been empty for over 2 years," reported Technical Officer Crix, his scaled hands dancing across a portable scanner. "But all systems are still functional. The humans built this place to last." Thane nodded slowly, his yellow eyes taking in every detail. The Vashek Empire had been expanding through this sector for months, establishing mining operations on the resource-rich moons. But Earth's military presence had always made them cautious. The humans had a reputation across the galaxy. They protected their own with frightening determination. "Show me their communication array," Thane ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 12 star systems for the Empire. The 2 Vashek officers moved deeper into the station. The corridors were designed for human proportions, making the 7-foot-tall reptilians crouch slightly as they walked. Emergency signs in English pointed toward different sections: medical bay, living quarters, command center. Everything was clean and organized, as if the crew had simply vanished one day. The communication center was impressive. Banks of equipment lined the walls, with multiple transmission arrays capable of reaching across several star systems. Crix immediately began connecting his devices to the human computers, his technical skills allowing him to bypass security protocols within minutes. "Fascinating," Crix muttered as data flowed across his screens. "Their communication protocols are more sophisticated than our intelligence reports suggested. Look at this. They have dedicated emergency frequencies, automatic distress beacon systems, and priority channels that can reach Earth Fleet Command directly." Thane leaned over his subordinate's shoulder, studying the information. An idea began forming in his cunning mind, an idea that could solve the Empire's biggest problem in this sector. The human military was too strong for direct confrontation, but perhaps they could be lured into a trap. "Can you access their emergency protocols?" Thane asked. "Already working on it, sir. The humans are very thorough. They have detailed instructions for distress calls, including specific codes and authentication methods." Crix's fingers moved rapidly across the interface. "I'm also finding audio logs from the crew, personal messages, even training recordings." The hours passed as the 2 aliens studied human emergency procedures. They learned about rescue protocols, response times, and the types of situations that would trigger immediate military intervention. Most importantly, they discovered that humans would risk everything to save their people. "Perfect," Thane said finally. "Here's what we're going to do." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Using the abandoned station's equipment and the crew's personal logs, They would create a convincing distress call. Cricks's technical abilities would allow him to synthesize voices and background sounds, making it appear that humans were dying and desperately needed rescue. "We'll claim to be survivors from a colony ship," Thane explained as he paced the command center. "Engine failure, life support systems breaking down, hundreds of civilians including children slowly suffocating in the void. The humans won't be able to ignore that." Cricks nodded eagerly. "I can create the voice of a female scientist, Dr. Elena Martinez, according to these personnel files. She was the station's chief researcher. Her voice patterns are in the training recordings." "Excellent. We'll position our fleet in the asteroid field near coordinates that we'll specify in the message. When their rescue ships arrive, we'll have them surrounded. 12 Vashek warships against whatever small rescue force they send." "What about their military escorts?" "Think about it, Cricks. If you received a desperate message saying your people were dying, would you waste time organizing a massive battle fleet? No. You'd send the fastest ships available for immediate rescue. Medical ships, supply vessels, maybe 1 or 2 military escorts at most." The technical officer began working on the fake message immediately. He studied Dr. Martinez's voice, patterns, speech rhythms, and professional vocabulary. Using advanced audio synthesis, he created a desperate-sounding transmission that would break any human heart. "This is Dr. Elena Martinez aboard the civilian vessel New Horizon," the synthesized voice pleaded through the speakers. "We suffered critical engine failure 6 days ago. Life support systems are failing. We have 847 civilians aboard, including 112 children. Oxygen recyclers are at 12% efficiency and dropping. We need immediate evacuation. Please, if anyone receives this message, we're dying out here." Thane listened to the recording and smiled coldly. The fear and desperation in the artificial voice sounded completely authentic. Background sounds of alarms and panicked voices added to the effect. "Add more technical details," he instructed. "Humans love their technical specifications. Make it sound like she's a real scientist reporting a real crisis." Cricks enhanced the message with authentic-sounding engineering problems: fusion reactor coolant leaks, atmospheric processor failures, navigation computer malfunctions. He even included coordinates for their supposed location in the asteroid field where the Vashek fleet was already positioning itself. "The beauty of this plan," Thane explained to his officer, "is that we're using humanity's greatest strength against them. Their compassion for their own people makes them predictable. They'll come rushing to help and we'll be waiting." The Empire had been studying human military tactics for years. While their technology was advanced and their individual ships were formidable, humans typically fought in predictable patterns. They favored direct confrontation over stealth, overwhelming firepower over subtle strategy. Most importantly, they always prioritized saving lives over tactical advantages. "Once we capture their rescue ships, we'll have access to their technology," Thane continued. "Medical equipment, faster-than-light drives, communication systems, maybe even weapon designs. The Empire will reward us greatly for this intelligence. And the human crews? Prisoners of war. The Empire can always use them for information about Earth's military capabilities and defensive strategies." As the hours passed, the fake distress call was refined and perfected. Cricks added timestamps showing that the supposed disaster had happened recently, creating urgency that would prevent the humans from organizing a massive response. The message was programmed to repeat every 20 minutes on multiple frequencies. "Sir, there's one thing that concerns me," Cricks said as he made final adjustments to the transmission. "Our intelligence reports suggest that humans become extremely aggressive when their people are threatened. What if they respond with more force than we expect?" Thane waved dismissively. "Cricks, we'll have 12 warships against whatever small rescue force they send. Our plasma cannons can disable their ships without destroying them, and our cloaking technology will give us complete surprise. Besides, humans are emotional creatures. When they see their people in danger, they don't think strategically." The commander moved to the station's main viewport, looking out at the stars. Somewhere in that vast darkness, human colonies thrived under Earth's protection. Soon, that protection would be tested by the most elaborate deception the Vashek Empire had ever attempted. "Initiate transmission," Thane ordered. The fake distress call began broadcasting across human emergency frequencies, carrying its desperate plea through space at the speed of light. The message would reach the nearest human outpost in 3 days, and from there it would be relayed to Earth Fleet Command within hours. Thane allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The humans thought they were the galaxy's protectors, always ready to rescue anyone in distress. Today, that nobility would become their weakness. The trap was set. Now they just had to wait for the humans to walk into it. The emergency alert reached Terra Base Command at 0347 hours, piercing through the usual nighttime routine with urgent priority codes. Admiral Rebecca Stone was pulled from her sleep by the insistent chiming of her personal communicator, the device that only activated for the most serious emergencies. "Admiral, you need to see this immediately," came the voice of her aide, Lieutenant Torres. "We've received a distress call from the Kepler 442 system. Multiple casualties, civilian vessel in critical condition." Stone was already pulling on her uniform as she spoke. "How long ago?" "The transmission reached our outer listening post 12 minutes ago. Signal degradation suggests it originated approximately 72 hours ago. Ma'am, there are children involved." Those last words hit Stone like a physical blow. In her 23 years of military service, she had responded to countless emergencies, but situations involving children always received absolute priority. She was running toward the command center before Torres finished speaking. The main operations room buzzed with activity despite the early hour. Officers who should have been sleeping were already at their stations, pulling up star charts and calculating jump coordinates. The massive display screen showed the Kepler 442 system, with a pulsing red indicator marking the source of the distress signal. "Play the message," Stone ordered as she took her position at the central command station. Dr. Elena Martinez's desperate voice filled the room. Every word carried the weight of impending death, the technical details painting a clear picture of a colony ship slowly dying in the void. 847 people, including 112 children, with life support systems failing and no hope of survival without immediate rescue. "Analysis?" Stone asked her senior staff. Commander Phillips, her intelligence officer, spoke first. "The New Horizon is listed in our registry as a deep space colony vessel, departed from Earth 18 months ago bound for the Centauri expansion zone. Dr. Martinez is confirmed as their chief science officer. Voice patterns match our records. Distance and travel time?" 67 light years, replied Captain Webb, her most experienced field commander. "With our fastest ships using maximum jump drive efficiency, we can reach them in 36 hours. Stone studied the timeline. If the distress call was already 3 days old, and life support was failing when it was sent, they had very little time. Every minute of delay could mean the difference between rescue and recovery of bodies. "Captain Webb, I want you to lead this mission," she decided. "Take everything we can spare. Medical ships, supply vessels, engineering support. Those people have been dying for 3 days already." "Understood, Admiral. I recommend the Thunderbolt as flagship, with the Valiant and Stormrider as escorts. The hospital ship Mercy Dawn can provide emergency medical support for 800+ casualties." "Approved. How quickly can you depart?" Webb was already calculating. "The Thunderbolt can be ready in 2 hours. The escort ships will need 3 hours for full preparation. But we can't wait that long if people are dying. I suggest we leave as soon as possible with whatever ships are ready." Stone nodded grimly. This was exactly the kind of decision that kept her awake at night, balancing speed against preparation, rescue against risk. But with children involved, there was really no choice at all. "Do it. Operation Guardian Angel is approved with full priority authorization. Take whatever you need: medical supplies, life support equipment, emergency shelters. If there are survivors, I want them brought home." Within minutes, Terra Base transformed into organized chaos. Supply crews loaded emergency equipment onto transport ships while medical teams prepared for mass casualties. The Thunderbolt's crew reported to their stations ahead of schedule, understanding that every minute could save lives. Captain Webb reviewed the mission parameters as his ship prepared for departure. The Thunderbolt was one of Earth's most advanced heavy cruisers, equipped with powerful engines and state-of-the-art medical facilities. Her escort ships, the destroyers Valiant and Storm Rider, were fast and maneuverable, perfect for a rapid response mission. "Sir," called Lieutenant Commander Hayes from the tactical station. "Long-range sensors show no other vessels in the target area. If there are hostile forces, we'll be going in alone until the support fleet arrives." "Noted. But we're not expecting hostiles on a rescue mission. Our priority is getting those people to safety." The ship's medical officer, Dr. Amanda Cross, approached the command area with her preliminary casualty projections. "Captain, based on the distress call details, we're looking at severe oxygen deprivation, possible radiation exposure from their failing reactor, and 3 days of inadequate life support. The children will be in the worst condition." Webb's jaw tightened. He had 2 children of his own back on Earth, safe in their beds, while these kids slowly suffocated in the darkness of space. "Doctor, prepare for the worst. Mass oxygen treatment, radiation medicine, emergency surgery if needed. Already working on it, sir. I've requested additional medical personnel from the Mercy Dawn." As the final preparations completed, Admiral Stone arrived in the Thunderbolt's docking bay to see them off. This wasn't standard procedure, but rescue missions involving children weren't standard situations. "Captain," she said, gripping Webb's hand firmly, "bring them home." "Yes, ma'am. All of them." The Thunderbolt departed Terra Base exactly 2 hours and 15 minutes after the distress call arrived. Her powerful engines pushed the ship beyond normal safety limits as Webb ordered maximum speed toward the Kepler 442 system. Behind them, the escort ships and support vessels followed as quickly as their own preparations allowed. In the depths of space, the rescue fleet carved through the darkness at speeds that pushed the boundaries of physics. Jump drives charged and discharged in carefully calculated sequences, each transition bringing them closer to 847 people who might already be dead. Webb stood on his bridge watching the stars shift as they moved through hyperspace. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, each person understanding that they were racing against time itself. The ship's computers continuously updated. Their arrival time: 34 hours, 33 hours, 32 hours. "Sir," Hayes called from his station, "I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures from our destination. Could be interference from the asteroid field mentioned in the distress call. Keep monitoring. If their ship is breaking apart, there might be debris clouds or radiation leaks affecting our sensors." Meanwhile, aboard the hospital ship Mercy Dawn, medical teams prepared for every possible emergency. Oxygen therapy equipment, radiation detectors, pediatric life support systems, everything needed to save lives that had been hanging by a thread for days. The rescue fleet pushed deeper into space, driven by humanity's most fundamental instinct: the absolute refusal to abandon their own people. Behind them, Admiral Stone coordinated with Earth Fleet Command to prepare additional support vessels, just in case the situation was worse than the distress call indicated. None of them suspected they were racing toward an ambush. None of them imagined that Dr. Elena Martinez's desperate voice was a carefully crafted lie designed to exploit their compassion. They simply knew that their people were dying, and they would move heaven and earth to save them. The trap was working perfectly. As the hours passed and the fleet drew closer to Kepler 442, Captain Webb reviewed the rescue procedures one final time. His ships would drop out of hyperspace at the coordinates specified in the distress call, immediately begin scanning for survivors, and start evacuation procedures within minutes of arrival. It never occurred to him that someone might fake a human distress call. In his experience, the galaxy's various species might fight over territory or resources, but they didn't typically impersonate each other's emergency communications. Such deception was beyond his understanding of alien psychology. The countdown continued. 24 hours to destination, 23 hours, 22 hours. Every minute brought them closer to what they believed would be humanity's largest rescue operation in recent history. Instead, they were approaching humanity's first encounter with an enemy cruel enough to weaponize their compassion. The Thunderbolt dropped out of hyperspace at the coordinates specified in the distress call, followed moments later by the destroyers Valiant and Storm Rider. Captain Webb immediately ordered all sensors to maximum range, scanning desperately for the dying colony ship New Horizon. "Report." Webb called to his bridge crew as the tactical displays flickered to life. "No sign of the civilian vessel, sir," replied Lieutenant Commander Hayes, his fingers dancing across the sensor controls. "I'm not detecting any human ship signatures in the immediate area. Expand the search pattern. They might have drifted from their original position." Dr. Cross joined Webb at the command station, her medical equipment ready for immediate deployment. "Captain, if they've been without proper life support for 6 days now, we have minutes at most. Where are they?" Webb felt the first cold touch of unease. The distress call had been very specific about their location, and Dr. Martinez had seemed too precise about technical details to be wrong about basic navigation. His years of military experience began sending warning signals through his mind. "Hayes, what are those energy readings from the asteroid field?" The tactical officer's face went pale as he studied his displays. "Sir, I'm detecting multiple large objects concealed within the asteroid field. The energy signatures are consistent with weapon systems and engine cores." "How many?" "At least 12 distinct signatures, sir. Each one appears to be approximately the size of a heavy cruiser." The pieces clicked together in Webb's mind with horrifying clarity. No distressed civilian ship, weapons signatures hidden in asteroids, a distress call that had lured them to these exact coordinates. They hadn't come to rescue anyone. They had walked straight into an ambush. All ships, immediate defensive. "Formation!" Webb barked into his communicator. "We have multiple hostile contacts concealed in the asteroid field. This is not a rescue mission. Repeat, this is not a rescue mission." Even as he spoke, space around them erupted with enemy vessels. 12 Vashek warships decloaked simultaneously, their reptilian designs emerging from the asteroids like prehistoric predators. The human rescue fleet was completely surrounded. Commander Thane's voice crackled through the communication channels, speaking in accented but clear English. "Human vessels, you are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender immediately and you will not be harmed. We require only your ships and technology." Webb's response was immediate and furious. The realization that someone had faked a human distress call, had used the voices of dying children to lure them into a trap, filled him with a rage he had never experienced in his military career. "All ships, battle stations, load all weapons, systems. These enemies have dishonored themselves beyond measure." The bridge crew looked shocked. They had come expecting to save lives, and instead found themselves facing an enemy that would exploit the most basic human decency for tactical advantage. "Sir," Hayes called out, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Tactical analysis shows we're outnumbered 4-1. Should we attempt to withdraw?" "Negative." Webb's voice carried a cold fury that his crew had never heard before. "No one fakes a distress call involving human children and walks away. No one." The Thunderbolt opened, fire first, her magnetic acceleration cannons sending tungsten projectiles through space at tremendous velocity. The nearest Vashek ship had its shields overloaded within seconds, armor plating peeling away under the devastating impact. What Commander Thane had expected to be a quick surrender turned into something entirely different. The human ships didn't flee or negotiate. They attacked with a ferocity that caught the Vashek forces completely off guard. "Hayes, target their command ship," Webb ordered as plasma fire began filling the space around them. "I want to have a personal conversation with whoever thought this was a good idea." The destroyers Valiant and Storm Rider flanked the Thunderbolt, their smaller but faster weapon systems picking apart Vashek formations with surgical precision. The hospital ship Mercy Dawn, built for saving lives rather than taking them, nonetheless, carried defensive systems that began returning fire. Thane's confident ambush rapidly became a nightmare. His intelligence reports had described humans as emotional and predictable, but this was unlike anything in the Imperial database. The human ships moved with coordinated precision while unleashing firepower that exceeded all projections. "Crix!" Thane shouted over the sound of his flagship being hit. "Why didn't our intelligence reports mention their weapons were this powerful?" "Sir, they're not using standard tactical protocols. They're fighting like we threatened their families." That was exactly what the humans were fighting like, because in their minds that was exactly what had happened. Someone had used the voices of dying human children to set a trap. For a species that would travel thousands of light years to rescue strangers, such deception was unforgivable. The Thunderbolt's main guns found their mark on Thane's flagship, sending massive explosions rippling across the alien vessel's hull. But Webb wasn't satisfied with simply damaging enemy ships. He wanted them to understand the full consequence of their actions. "Open a channel to the alien commander," Webb ordered. "Channel open, sir. This is Captain Marcus Webb of Earth Fleet Command. You made a serious mistake when you decided to fake a distress call claiming human children were dying. We don't negotiate with anyone who would use such tactics." Thane tried to respond, but his words were cut short as another volley from the human ships crippled 2 more Vashek vessels. The reptilian commander was beginning to understand that he had badly miscalculated human psychology. The asteroid field became a chaotic battleground of plasma fire and exploding debris. The Vashek ships, designed for ambush tactics and quick victories, found themselves unable to adapt to the humans' aggressive response. Every time they tried to establish formation, the faster human destroyers would break their lines. "Sir," Hayes reported, his voice now carrying grim satisfaction. 3 enemy vessels destroyed, 2 more critically damaged and drifting. Our shields are holding at 70%. Maintain attack pattern. I want every single one of these ships disabled or destroyed. Dr. Cross watched the battle from the medical station, her rescue equipment unused but her expression hard as steel. "Captain, they used our voices. They made us think our people were dying just to get us here." "I know, Doctor, and they're going to regret it." The Valiant scored a direct hit on a Vashek cruiser's engine section, sending the alien ship spinning helplessly into an asteroid. The Storm Rider's torpedo spread caught another enemy vessel amidships, breaking it apart in a series of secondary explosions. Commander Thane's tactical display showed the true scope of his disaster. What should have been a simple capture operation had become a rout. Half of his fleet was already destroyed or disabled, and the humans showed no signs of slowing their attack. "Sir," Crix reported, his voice shaking with fear. "Long-range sensors are detecting additional human ships approaching. A large fleet, sir, including what appears to be a Dreadnought-class vessel." Thane's blood went cold. If this was just the rescue force, what was Earth sending as backup? The answer came in the form of Admiral Stone's voice, broadcast on all frequencies as Battle Group Omega dropped out of hyperspace. The Dreadnought Retribution, accompanied by 4 heavy cruisers, appeared like avenging angels. "This is Admiral Rebecca Stone of Earth Fleet Command. Any alien vessels involved in the deception that brought us here have one opportunity to surrender. This offer expires in 60 seconds. Webb smiled grimly as he watched the massive human reinforcements take position. The Retribution alone outgunned the remaining Vashek ships combined. "Admiral, this is Captain Webb. We have the situation under control, but these enemies used a fake distress call involving children to lure us here." Stone's response carried a cold fury that made Webb's anger seem mild. "Understood, Captain. No mercy for anyone who would exploit our protection of civilians." The remaining Vashek ships tried to flee, but human vessels were faster and more maneuverable. One by one, they were hunted down among the asteroids. Those that survived long enough began transmitting surrender signals, but mercy was not immediately forthcoming. Thane's flagship, badly damaged and unable to escape, finally broadcast complete surrender. The commander who had thought himself so clever now faced the full consequences of underestimating human protective instincts. The battle was over, but the implications were just beginning. The massive Dreadnought Retribution cast its shadow across the asteroid field as Admiral Stone surveyed the aftermath of the battle. Debris from destroyed Vashek ships drifted between the asteroids, while the few surviving alien vessels hung, motionless under the guns of Earth's most powerful warships. Captain Webb stood on the bridge of the Thunderbolt, watching as human Marines prepared to board the disabled enemy ships. His anger had cooled from white-hot fury to cold determination. Someone was going to answer for the deception that had brought them here. "Admiral," Webb reported over the communication link, "we have 7 Vashek vessels destroyed and 5 disabled. The enemy flagship appears to be Commander Thane's vessel, based on the signals intelligence we've gathered. Good work, Captain. I want prisoners for interrogation. We need to understand the full scope of this operation and determine if other human colonies are at risk." The boarding operation began with military precision. Human Marines, trained for hostile ship operations, cut through alien airlocks and secured prisoner after prisoner. The Vashek crews, demoralized by their crushing defeat, offered little resistance. Technical Officer Crix was among the first aliens brought aboard the Retribution. The reptilian creature trembled as he was escorted to the interrogation chamber, his confidence completely shattered by the humans' devastating response. Admiral Stone entered the chamber personally, her expression carrying the controlled fury of someone who had dedicated her life to protecting human civilians. She sat across from the alien prisoner, her voice deadly calm. "You're going to tell me everything about this operation," she said. "Start with why you thought faking a distress call involving children was an acceptable military tactic." Crix's resistance crumbled immediately. The technical officer had never experienced anything like the human response to his deception. In Vashek military doctrine, such tricks were considered clever strategy. Humans clearly viewed them as unforgivable crimes. "It was Commander Thane's plan," Crix stammered. "We found an abandoned human research station. The communication equipment was still functional. We studied your emergency protocols and created a message that would bring your rescue ships to us. 847 civilians, 112 children." Stone's voice carried the weight of every fake casualty. "You made us believe our people were dying just to steal our technology." "Yes," Crix whispered. "We never thought you would respond with such force. Our intelligence suggested humans were soft, that you would prioritize saving lives over military tactics." Stone leaned forward, her eyes blazing with contained anger. "You're right about one thing. We do prioritize saving lives. That's exactly why we're so angry. You used our compassion as a weapon against us." Meanwhile, on his damaged flagship, Commander Thane was led through corridors filled with human Marines. The reptilian commander had studied human military tactics for years, but nothing had prepared him for their response to deception involving civilians. Captain Webb waited in the Thunderbolt's conference room as Thane was brought before him. The alien commander's proud bearing was gone, replaced by the hollow look of someone who had made a catastrophic miscalculation. "Commander Thane," Webb said, his voice carrying barely controlled rage, "I want you to listen to something." He activated the recording of the fake distress call, filling the room with Dr. Elena Martinez's synthesized voice pleading for help. The desperate words about dying children echoed off the metal walls. "That message brought us here," Webb continued. "Do you understand what you've done? You made us believe our people were suffocating in the darkness. You used the voices of dying children to set your trap." Thane's yellow eyes met Webb's for a moment before looking away. "It was a military strategy. In war, deception is acceptable. This wasn't war until you made it war. This was supposed to be a rescue mission." Webb's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You have no idea what you've unleashed." The interrogations continued throughout the day as human intelligence officers worked to uncover the full scope of the Vashek operation. What they discovered was disturbing. This wasn't an isolated incident but part of a larger plan to capture human technology and eliminate Earth's presence in multiple star systems. Admiral Stone reviewed the intelligence reports in her ready room, her staff gathered around the conference table. The scope of the Vashek Empire's ambitions was becoming clear, and it went far beyond simple territorial expansion. "They've been studying our emergency protocols for months," reported Commander Phillips. "This fake distress call was just the first phase. They had plans to stage similar operations throughout human space." "Using our own compassion against us," Stone said grimly. "How many other species have they tried this with?" "Intelligence suggests we're the first, Admiral. Most other species don't have our reputation for mounting rescue operations regardless of cost or risk." Dr. Cross joined the briefing from the Mercy Dawn, her medical equipment unused, but her expression hard with anger. "Admiral, I've been treating some of the alien prisoners for injuries sustained during the battle. They keep asking why we responded so aggressively to what they consider a standard military deception." "What did you tell them?" "That they made the mistake of threatening human children, even fake ones. They don't seem to understand the significance of that. Stone nodded grimly. The cultural differences between humans and the Vashek Empire were becoming clear. What humans saw as sacred, the protection of their children and civilians, the aliens viewed as exploitable weakness. Back on the damaged Vashek flagship, Technical Officer Crix was providing detailed information about the abandoned research station where the deception had been planned. Human intelligence officers cross-referenced his testimony with their own records, identifying the facility as Deep Space Research Post 7. The station had been missing for 2 years, Crix explained to his interrogators. We found it intact, with all systems functional. The crew was gone. We don't know what happened to them. And you decided to use their equipment to impersonate them, said the intelligence officer coldly. It was perfect for our needs. All the communication protocols, voice recordings, even personal logs that helped us understand human emergency procedures. You studied our rescue protocol specifically to use them against us. Yes, Crix admitted. Commander Thane believed that human emotional responses would make you predictable. Send a few medical ships and maybe one military escort. We never expected an entire battle fleet. The intelligence officer made notes, but his expression showed his disgust. The idea that anyone would study human compassion specifically to exploit it was almost incomprehensible. Admiral Stone called a meeting of all ship commanders as the interrogations continued. The holographic display showed the current tactical situation, the asteroid field secured, enemy ships captured or destroyed, and a clear understanding of the threat they had faced. This operation goes beyond simple military aggression, Stone told her captains. They didn't just attack us. They attacked the very foundation of who we are as a species, our willingness to risk everything to save each other. Captain Webb spoke up from his position around the conference table. Admiral, what are your orders regarding the prisoners? Standard military law would suggest prisoner exchange negotiations. Not this time, Captain. These aren't honorable enemies who fought according to military convention. They used fake distress calls involving children. That crosses every line of acceptable behavior. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Earth Fleet Command was preparing to send a message that would echo across the galaxy. There would be severe consequences for anyone who dared to exploit human protective instincts. Sir, said Captain Murphy from the Storm Rider, our long-range communications are detecting increased alien military activity in surrounding systems. Word of this battle is spreading quickly. Good, Stone replied. Let it spread. Let every species in the galaxy understand that humanity's compassion is not weakness, and our protective instincts are not to be used against us. The aftermath of the battle was being felt far beyond the Kepler 442 system. Alien governments throughout the sector were receiving reports of the human response to the Vashek deception. The species that had been viewed as soft-hearted protectors had revealed a much more dangerous side when their compassion was weaponized. Commander Thane, now imprisoned aboard the Retribution, finally understood the magnitude of his miscalculation. He had seen human mercy and assumed it indicated weakness. Instead, he had discovered that a species willing to die for strangers would become absolutely ruthless toward anyone who threatened those same strangers. The interrogations were revealing more than just military intelligence. They were exposing fundamental differences in how species viewed the protection of civilians. For humans, it was sacred duty. For the Vashek Empire, it was exploitable vulnerability. Admiral Stone prepared her report for Earth Fleet Command, knowing that this incident would change humanity's relationship with alien civilizations throughout the galaxy. The message would be clear. Earth's people could be approached as friends, allies, or even honorable enemies. But anyone who tried to use their compassion against them would face consequences beyond imagination. The news of the Kepler 442 incident spread through galactic communication networks like wildfire. Within days, every major alien civilization had received reports about the failed Vashek ambush and humanity's devastating response. What had started as a clever military deception became a lesson that would reshape interstellar relations for generations. Admiral Stone stood before the Galactic Council 3 weeks after the battle, her uniform bearing the insignia of Earth Fleet Command. The massive chamber housed representatives from 47 different species, their varied forms creating a rainbow of scales, fur, and exotic features. Today, they were all focused on understanding what humanity had become. "Members of the Council," Stone began, her voice carrying across the chamber, "I appear before you to present evidence of a war crime committed against human civilians by the Vashek Empire." The holographic display showed the abandoned research station where the deception had been planned. Technical readouts revealed how the aliens had studied human emergency protocols specifically to exploit them. Most damning of all was the recording of the fake distress call, with its synthesized voices of dying children. "The Vashek Empire studied our compassion like a weapon," Stone continued. "They identified our willingness to risk everything for our people, and they decided to use that against us. 847 fictional civilians, including 112 fictional children, supposedly dying in space just to lure our rescue ships into an ambush." Ambassador Velkrin, of the Altarian Federation, a tall insectoid creature, clicked his mandibles in what his species considered deep thought. "Admiral Stone, the Council recognizes that deception is unfortunate, but military strategy often involves such tactics. Why did humanity respond with such overwhelming force?" Stone's expression hardened. "Ambassador, let me explain something about human nature that apparently wasn't clear before. We don't just protect our own people, we consider it a sacred duty. When someone fakes a distress call claiming our children are dying, they're not just attacking our military forces. They're attacking the very foundation of who we are." The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Species throughout the galaxy had viewed humanity's rescue operations as admirable but naive behavior. They had never understood that this compassion was tied to something much more dangerous. Captain Webb entered the chamber as Stone's testimony continued, leading Commander Thane in restraints. The reptilian Vashek commander looked broken, his proud bearing completely gone after weeks of interrogation and the realization of what his actions had unleashed. "This is Commander Thane," Stone announced to the Council, "the architect of the deception. He will explain to you personally what he learned about humanity." Thane spoke reluctantly, his voice carrying none of its former confidence. "Honored Council members, the Vashek Empire made a catastrophic error in judgment. We studied human rescue operations and concluded they indicated weakness, a species so emotional that they would risk valuable military assets to save civilians." "And your conclusion now?" prompted the Council chairman. "We were wrong. Completely wrong. Humans don't rescue people because they're weak. They do it because they're strong enough to make that choice. And when you threaten that choice, when you use it against them, they become something else entirely." Ambassador Quellic of the Zephyrian Collective, a crystalline being whose people were known for their logical approach to warfare, requested permission to speak. "Commander Thane, you speak as if humanity changed during your encounter. Can you elaborate?" "They didn't change," Thane replied, his voice hollow. "We finally saw what they really were. Every species in the galaxy knows humans will risk their lives for strangers. What we didn't understand is that anyone who threatens those strangers becomes their enemy forever." Stone stepped forward to continue her presentation. "The Council needs to understand that this incident has changed nothing about humanity's commitment to protecting civilians. We will still respond to any legitimate distress call, regardless of species or location. But we will also remember anyone who tries to exploit that commitment." The holographic display shifted to show the current situation in the Kepler 442 system. Earth fleet had established a permanent base there, with regular patrols throughout the surrounding sectors. The message was clear. This was now human-protected space. "Admiral," asked Ambassador Trex of the Hegemony, a massive reptilian creature, similar to the Vashek but unrelated, "what are humanity's intentions regarding the surviving Vashek forces?" "They will be treated according to the standards they demonstrated," Stone replied coldly. "Commander Thane and his officers used fake distress calls involving children. They will remain in human custody indefinitely, serving as a reminder of the consequences of such actions." In the weeks following the council session, alien governments throughout the galaxy began updating their intelligence files on humanity. The species that had been classified as benevolent protectors received new designations: extremely dangerous when provoked, and do not exploit rescue protocols. Technical Officer Crix, now permanently imprisoned on a human facility, found himself the subject of intense study by xenopsychologists trying to understand how the deception had been planned. His detailed confessions revealed the depth of the Vashek Empire's miscalculation. "They studied us for months," Crix told his interrogators during one session. "We analyzed every human rescue operation for the past 10 years, looking for patterns and weaknesses. We thought we understood you completely." "What did you miss?" asked Dr. Williams, the lead researcher. "Everything," Crix replied. "We saw the rescue operations and assumed they were costly mistakes, valuable ships and personnel risked for people who might already be dead. We never understood that those operations were demonstrations of power, not weakness." "How so?" "Only a species with overwhelming strength can afford to risk everything for strangers. Only a military so powerful it doesn't fear enemies can send its best ships on rescue missions. We thought we were exploiting weakness, but we were actually provoking the galaxy's most dangerous predators." Meanwhile, Deep Space Research Post 7 had been recovered and thoroughly investigated by human teams. The fate of the original crew remained a mystery. They had simply vanished without any sign of struggle or evacuation. Their abandoned equipment had become the tool of their species' enemies, but their sacrifice had revealed something important about humanity's place in the galaxy. The research station was converted into a memorial and warning beacon, broadcasting on all frequencies the story of what happened when someone faked a human distress call. The message was simple but clear: Earth protects its own, always. Captain Webb returned to active duty with a new understanding of his species' role among the stars. The Battle of Kepler 442, as historians were already calling it, had been more than a military victory. It had been a revelation about the true nature of human compassion. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Hayes asked during one of their patrols, "do you think this will deter other species from attempting similar deceptions?" "I hope so," Webb replied, watching the stars through the bridge viewport. "But if it doesn't, they'll learn the same lesson the Vashek Empire learned. Our mercy is not weakness, and our protection is not negotiable." The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength and greatest weakness were the same thing: their absolute refusal to abandon anyone in need. The species that would travel impossible distances to save strangers had revealed what happened to those who threatened those same strangers. Across dozens of star systems, alien governments began revising their policies toward human space. Trade agreements were renewed with more favorable terms. Territorial disputes that had simmered for years were suddenly resolved through negotiation. Nobody wanted to risk provoking the species that had turned a rescue mission into an overwhelming military response. The Vashek Empire itself began fragmenting as news of the defeat spread through their territories. Subject species that had been conquered by Vashek forces saw the destruction of their fleet as an opportunity for rebellion. The empire that had seemed so powerful just months before was collapsing under the weight of its own miscalculation. Commander Thane spent his days in solitary confinement, reviewing the intelligence reports that had led to his disastrous decision. Every analysis had suggested that humans were predictable, emotional, and vulnerable to deception. None of the reports had mentioned that those same emotions could be transformed into implacable fury when properly provoked. Admiral Stone received regular updates on the galactic response to the Kepler 442 incident. Species that had never contacted Earth before were now requesting formal diplomatic relations. Others that had been considering hostile actions were suddenly interested in peace treaties. "Ma'am," her aide reported during one briefing, "the Zelonian Republic has requested permission to establish a joint rescue operation training program. They want to learn human emergency response protocols." "For legitimate purposes, I assume?" "Yes, ma'am. They've had several natural disasters recently and are impressed by our civilian protection capabilities." Stone smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Perhaps some good would come from this after all. Humanity's protective instincts, once nearly exploited by enemies, were now being recognized as something worthy of emulation. The final report on the Kepler 442 incident was filed with Earth Fleet Command 6 months after the battle. The conclusions were clear. Humanity's willingness to risk everything for their people was both their greatest asset and their most dangerous characteristic when threatened. The report's final line would become part of human military doctrine. Our compassion is our strength, but our wrath is our weapon. Let the galaxy choose which one they prefer to see. Deep in space, automated beacons continued broadcasting the story of what happened when someone faked a human distress call. The message traveled to the farthest reaches of explored space, carried by traders and diplomats to species that had never heard of Earth. The galaxy had learned a new truth. Humans would come for their people, and they would remember who tried to stop them.